Jewel specifically said, she says, you watch this group, Dad, they're gonna make it big. She said they're gonna win a Grammy. I mean, she because she was so intuitive.
Meet Alexander Brangman. He's the father of Jewel Brangman, who appeared in the 2014 reality show American Hustle Life starring BTS. Jewel died on September 8, 2014, after a faulty airbag in her rental car exploded. Jewel's death is one of at least 25 worldwide, caused by Japanese airbag manufacturer Takata.
The 26-year-old was driving a 2001 Honda with a defective airbag. She got into a fender bender in Los Angeles that every other driver walked away from.
It's like an exploding grenade. That's how transportation officials describe the violent impact of a faulty Takata airbag.
Takata is now recalling more than 3 million faulty airbag inflators in January, pushing the overall total close to 70 million.
Takata has pleaded guilty to a criminal charge in a scheme to conceal a deadly defect in millions of its airbags.
Could you describe your daughter Jewel as a person? What kind of person was she?
The first word that comes to mind was she was extraordinary. Jewel was very kind, talented, fun, very great sense of humor, extremely bright and intellectual. We were inseparable, after she was born, from pre-K to when she got her master's degree. So I was involved with all of her activities. She was a academic All-American. She was a 9.5 level gymnastic champion. Extremely, extremely gifted, but a very giving and caring individual. She was the type of person that always cared about the underdog. She was involved in the entertainment industry. She wanted to do it after she graduated because she went straight through, not a problem. But like I said, from pre-K, she moved out to California. I was ecstatic for her because, again, she is someone that, she's a kid that just never gave you a problem and was just always on point, I raised her as a single dad, and she excelled to levels that any parent would just be super proud of.
I know that Jewel appeared on American Hustle Life, the BTS reality series, and she also appeared in the music video with them, the Boy in Love, the LA version.
That's a great memory for me because Jewel was a very animated person and so positive. And I remember getting a call, as you said, because she told me everything that she was doing. We talked 3-4 times a day, text all day, that type of stuff. And how that came about, as I recall, Jewel was in a restaurant, and then she went outside, and some of the members of the BTS team and as well as BTS saw her, and they solicited her to be involved in the reality show. And basically the premise was about how to have fun in American culture with young women, etc. How to win dates, and that. And the show was shot in Malibu, and the BTS members were great towards Jewel. I said, well, what are they like? And she said, they have a shy side about them. They're very shy. And for Jewel, that's even more engaging because it's authentic. They were real. I can correlate it to like when the Beatles came to this country, they had that kind of hysteria. And Jewel felt that. And when I talked to her, she had that kind of like, wow, this is exciting, especially from a group that's coming from a different perspective and, in a different culture. She felt that their success would be on that same level. And quite frankly, it's ascending in that direction.
I'm just amazed by how she could just sense that this group was going to, years before they had any major success in the West, she just knew they were going to be stars. I'm just so impressed by that.
She was absolutely 100. She said they're going to win a Grammy. I mean, she because she was so intuitive, ever since a baby this big, she was just different. And, her thing was, you got to go out of your comfort zone. And I'm sure she passed that kind of information because they had an intimate conversation. They really liked her. They really liked her. I know that they're huge now and they have so much on their plate. But if it's some way that can be conveyed to those members of that group, that if anyone believed in them, it was Jewel. With regard to the song Dynamite, which is, I believe, the second week, is on top of the charts. I think Jewel, she would literally do backflips, because she was a gymnast, and she would be like, I knew they could do it. I knew that they could do it. Because she was the type of person that really marveled in your success. She would want to hug them and congratulate them. She is a guardian for them. She's a guardian angel for them. She's watching over them. And there's also something, unique that's come out of this, for me. BTS has a staunch, really, really loyal fan base. It's incredible. And I'd like to thank them personally for the support that they've given me.
Could you recount what happened on that day in September 2014? What happened to Jewel?
She had this rental car and she had a modeling assignment. And just like any dad, we had a routine. Call me when you get there. Let me know the environment and the atmosphere. Let me know that you're okay. She pulled over on the side of the road. And the last words I heard from her before she had even got up to LA was, I just wanted to tell you, Dad, I love my life, she said. And this was in the text. It's the last thing that I'll ever hear from her. And she said, I love my life. I love everything you've done in my life. And she was just so happy. That week, Jewel stayed with me in San Diego. I'm a Giants fan. And so I had to watch DirecTV in San Diego to get the Eastern Coast game. That day, after watching the game with family members, I hear 2 knocks on the door. I thought it was a noise complaint because historically we watch our games really loud and enthusiastic, and Jewel grew up with that tradition. But it was 2 San Diego police officers that came to my door. They didn't have too much information other than my daughter's name. At that particular point, my heart sank. They said that I had to call a social worker at Los Angeles County USC Trauma Medical Center. I got to Jewel's head surgeon, and she told me that Jewel had been in an accident. And the first thing I asked was, my daughter alive? She didn't answer that directly. She said, you need to come up here as quick as you can. And she said, I need to prepare you for what you're going to see. So basically what she prepared me for was to see my daughter on life support. When I walked into her room, what the doctor described was accurate. She was on life support, but the irony was that her face was as beautiful and as angelic as it had always been. She looked like she was sleeping. The only thing that she had was a scar on her carotid artery, and that's what basically took her life. I actually collapsed to the floor. Someone so promising, so enormously talented, so loved by many, was taken from me. Just like that.
I know she also wrote you a Father's Day card. That was very kind of demonstrative of how she felt about you.
Dad, it's almost like I drew and wrote this card myself. After 26 years, I finally understand I will always be your little girl. Big or small, old or young, you forever my everything, my rock, my world. Although I may wander, I'm never lost, for I have you. It's just who Jewel was. We were mapping out, that's why she was at my house that week, we were mapping out a path because she wanted to go to Stanford, and she pretty much got accepted there for a PhD because she wanted to go into counseling. And she wanted to write books for kids, for all kids, but in particularly young girls or people that may not have had a healthy self-esteem. And she wrote this article about cyberbullying, in the new age of multimedia and social media. And she was really adamant about how that can be destructive to individuals. And she was, so intuitive and so aware.
Could you tell me more about Takata?
I didn't really know that much about Takata airbags. This is the biggest recall in American history because this is a very complicated issue when you have airbags that are built with ammonium nitrate. Okay, that's an explosive compound that fluctuates in heat and humidity.
If I could just recap, Takata's reaction to all of this. So they were accused of failing to disclose the issue for years, and then they were fined for not cooperating with an investigation.
Yes, sir.
The company later pleaded guilty to deceiving car makers about its airbags, and
Yes, sir.
then it filed for bankruptcy.
There is not a monetary value that you can put on anything pertaining to life. If my daughter was here and I was homeless, I would prefer that. In order to bring awareness, there has to be some sort of punitive action. You know, you have the compensatory aspect in that, but it was astonishing how many people are unaware that this epidemic was going on. I decided to become a consumer advocate. Ultimately, I want to save lives. There are 3 Japanese executives. They were indicted. They need to be extradited. You know, for something like airbags, you need laws. You need federal mandates, a federal law, you know, across the board. You need car dealers to not be able to sell. You need injunctions, in other words. You need car dealers not to be able to sell recalled cars. Anybody that you love or you care about, tell them to go to the NHTSA website and check the VIN number to see if there's a recall, an active recall. You can also go to alexanderbrangman.com. My website, there's a wealth of information always being updated.
Well, I never met Jewel, but I can feel her power so strong. Like I say, it's coming in many ways from you, but also just her energy is still here. You can just sense it, you know.
When I had her celebration of life out here, you know, it was just, people flew from all over the country. There's just lines and lines and the stories that they shared. And I say this humbly, they centered around me because they were like, Jewel, how do you do this? How do you have this? She said, because my dad loves me. If she felt that way about me, I have to try to do something that's positive in her honor. You know, I have to find strength when it's hard. An extraordinary human being that I was fortunate enough to say that was my daughter. And I'm very proud of that.